Camaro talking is no big...
Baywatch beaches.
Check us out.
And romance is washing ashore with him this season.
David Chokichi and I are going to end up together.
Yeah.
How far will it go? The story on Extra.
Extra, Monday at 6:30 on Coin TV. Mike Donahue, News Center 6.
A jury in New York finds Sheikh Omar Abdel Rahman and 9 others guilty of conspiracy. The government orders increased security at the nation's airports. And the Simpson jury prepares to start its deliberations tomorrow. This is the CBS Evening News. And this is John Roberts reporting. Good evening. Guilty. That is the verdict handed down today in what has been called the biggest terrorist threat in United States history. A jury found all 10 defendants in the case guilty of a conspiracy to blow up the United Nations and other New York City landmarks. Randall Pinkston has the story.
10 defendants, all of them found guilty. A clean sweep for federal prosecutors who convicted a radical Islamic sheikh and his co-defendants with a seldom-used charge, seditious conspiracy, plotting the overthrow of the U.S. government.
What the evidence, I think, sensibly shows is that there is an organization that is a support system for terrorism in the United States. Its designer is the sheikh.
The jury agreed with the prosecution's contention that Sheikh Omar Abdel Rahman, a blind Egyptian cleric, was the spiritual leader of a wide-ranging terrorist conspiracy, including the 1993 bombing of the World Trade Center and an assassination plot against Egyptian President Hosni Mubarak. The sheikh's defense attorney said the sheikh could tell she was crying as the verdict was read.
He said, "Don't cry," because he could hear or he sensed my snufflings next to him. And he said that I am not the first person to go to jail for his beliefs, and I won't be the last.
What this trial was clearly not about was religious beliefs. But you can't, in the name of religion, commit serious crimes.
The government's most powerful evidence, secretly recorded video and audio tapes. Many of the defendants seen at a Queens warehouse mixing what they believe were ingredients for bombs, allegedly aimed at New York's landmarks, including tunnels and the United Nations building. In the middle of the plot, Imad Salem, a shadowy former Egyptian army officer who turned out to be a government informant. He became the prosecution's chief witness and the defense's chief target.
The government bought their conviction here. They bought it with $1 million worth of cash. They gave the informant.
Defense attorneys claim the jury was intimidated by the overwhelming security precautions taken throughout the trial.
I fear that this case was decided out of fear.
The government said part of the terrorist plot was the killing of militant Rabbi Meir Kahane, and today the jury convicted one of the sheikh's co-defendants, El Said Nosair, in that 1990 murder. The sweeping victory for the prosecution stunned the entire defense team. They plan to appeal, but say they have very little hope of reversing the jury's verdict.
In political cases, and I've handled a number of them, we have never prevailed on an appeal. It would seem once the jury speaks, the judges sort of reverse roles and are willing to go along with whatever the jury has said.
Experts believe the case provided prosecutors with a gold mine of leads to other possible terrorists.
One of the big issues is where the sheikh got his money. There are hundreds of thousands of dollars that go in and out of his bank account. And the question is, who was providing it and to whom was he giving it to?
Sheikh Rahman and El Said Nosair each face up to life in prison. The others up to 20 years. Sentencing is scheduled for January of next year. Randall Pinkston, CBS News, New York.
On the same day as the verdict in the terror trial, more concerns here about safety for the flying public. Bob Orr reports federal authorities are taking precautions.
Just hours after the verdict, security at all U.S. airports was ratcheted up to the same level of high alert as during the Persian Gulf War. Authorities are clearly worried about a retaliatory strike against a U.S. airliner.
This is the target that they are most concerned about because it's the one that has the greatest amount of casualties and the greatest difficulty protecting.
It's the second nationwide security increase in just 2 months. The FAA will require passengers to show photo IDs and intensify the scanning of luggage.
I think it's necessary. I think if you're going to prevent terrorist attacks, then you should be willing to go through anything.
As long as it doesn't delay me too much, I think security increase is good.
Federal officials stress the heightened security is not solely in response to the sheikh's verdict. Last week's signing of the Middle East Peace Accord, an upcoming visit by world leaders to the United Nations, and the Pope's trip this week to New York City all combined are a troublesome mix for security enforcers.
They don't really have too many realistic options. They've got to tighten security to wait and see what happens with the Sheikh's immediate aftermath. Then the intelligence antenna will be out looking for any indication that any group is planning to do anything.
The timing of the Pope's visit is particularly worrisome. Last January, plots uncovered in the Philippines against the Pope and U.S. airliners led to a specific fear about liquid explosives in carry-on bags. Pat-down searches were ordered for all passengers flying from Asia to the United States. But it's not just airlines taking extra precautions. The State Department and the FBI have issued general warnings to all agencies and embassies to be on alert. As one law enforcement source told CBS News, it seems to be a given that terrorists will try something, somewhere. Bob Orr, CBS News, Washington.
CBS News consultant James Fox was the director of the FBI's New York office during the conspiracy investigation and the subsequent arrests. He joins us now. First of all, Mr. Fox, your reaction to today's verdict?
I'm very gratified, John, as you might expect. Gratified for two reasons. One, this was a major terrorist attack on the United States. The feeling of law enforcement was we had to apprehend the terrorist and get a conviction, which we did. Secondly, it was a major, major effort for the FBI and the New York police. And any time you put so much into an effort, you're always happy and gratified if it turns out successful, and this did.
You heard one of the defense attorneys say that they think that the jury reacted out of fear and intimidation. What's your take on that?
I'm sure the jury felt fear, but not because of this trial. The entire city felt fear. I felt fear, and still do. Fear from what has happened, fear from what might come. But I don't think that affected the jury's consideration of the evidence or their deliberations in the jury room.
Fear from what might come. We saw heightened security precautions taking place at the airports today. What could lie ahead as a result of this trial?
Well, this conviction is one of several things, I think, in recent months that perhaps could bode ill. We had the arrest of Mazouk, the Hamas terrorist, and Washington's decision to send him back to Israel. The arrest of Ramzi Youssef, the mastermind of the World Trade Center bombing. The Israeli PLO Accords, and now the conviction of the Sheikh and his co-defendants. There could be some terrorists out there that look at these events and say, it's time to send another message of violence to the United States. I do know that our intelligence agencies and our law enforcement sources are at the highest level of alerts to prevent this.
What message do you believe this sends to anybody who would wage a campaign of terrorism in the United States?
I hope the message that would-be terrorists get from this verdict is, if you commit an act of terrorism or violence in the United States, if it takes us 30 years, we're going to track you down, try you, and convict you, and then you'll spend the rest of your life in jail.
James Fox, thanks. And still ahead on the CBS Evening News, on the eve of deliberations in the O.J. Simpson trial, public opinion remains sharply divided along racial lines. And the British enter the metric era, fighting every inch of the way.
Where you been?
We want to eat.
Oh, I was over there talking to old Charlie.
Okay? Okay. Okay?
Okay.
Gentlemen, start your pitchers.
Kellogg's Rice Krispies in stereo.
Snap, crackle, and pop, plus that crisp toasted taste.
Now for the best part. Make them disappear.
What other cereal sounds so good?
Hong Kong. It's part of an exciting new world that's growing so fast you never know where it's going to grow next. So with our worldwide reputation for meeting the toughest deadlines, we at Caterpillar aren't surprised to find ourselves involved in the world's largest construction project, Hong Kong's new airport. In the only place Hong Kong had room for it, the South China Sea.
Up there all night, man, it's always just been me and my music. The last thing I ever wanted to worry about were my dentures. I switched to Fix-It-Dent, so now I know I can start playing at 6 p.m. and swing set after set straight through the dawn.
Fix-It-Dent holds stronger, longer than any other cream, even after 12 hours.
You tell me I don't have to worry. That's like music to my ears.
For a stronger, longer hold, Fix-It-Dent and forget it.
Jurors in the O.J. Simpson murder trial are scheduled to roll up their sleeves and get to work tomorrow deciding on a verdict. While the panel deliberates, a CBS News poll shows many Americans have already made up their minds. and their opinions seem to reflect racial divisions, as we hear from correspondent John Blackstone.
On this day before the Simpson jury begins deliberations, many in Los Angeles are already deliberating what the verdict will mean in this often racially charged city.
Are we represented on the jury? Yes. Are we represented on the prosecution? Yes. Are we represented on the defense? Yes. Then if process has been observed, why do you think we are going around burning and looting? You think we got less sense than anybody else? We're talking.
As a reflection of race relations in America, the Simpson trial reveals a nation divided. A CBS News poll released today shows 74% of white Americans believe O.J. Simpson is guilty, but 77% of African Americans believe he is innocent. This racial divergence is virtually unchanged since the trial began.
He looks innocent to me.
I think that it was in a really fair case.
Overwhelmingly, whites believe Simpson got a fair trial, 74% according to the CBS News poll, while only 45% of African Americans believe the trial was fair.
He got as fair a trial as a black man can get in this white society.
In the CBS News poll conducted after closing arguments on Friday, a majority of African Americans, 52%, expressed at least some confidence in the criminal justice system.
I think many people, probably the silent majority, are just simply willing to give it a chance, and then we will make a judgment about whether the system is fair.
On one point, Americans agree, regardless of color. 37% of whites and 40% of blacks say the Simpson trial will have a negative impact on race relations in the United States. The Los Angeles Police Department's Emergency Command Center will go into operation tomorrow when jury deliberations begin.
There's no indication anything's going to happen, but we have an obligation to be prepared.
I don't think a riot or nothing going to break out like that if he get found guilty or nothing.
We're talking about justice!
After well over a year of being preoccupied with O.J. Simpson, Los Angeles is awaiting the end of his trial, more with relief than with tension. John Blackstone, CBS News, Los Angeles.
Joining us now with more on what to expect during the jury deliberations, CBS News consultant and our expert on juries, Ann Cole. And people are starting to talk about the possibility, Ann Cole, of jury nullification, that they may decide to not even consider the law, but vote with either their gut or their heart.
I don't think that's going to happen. I think that these jurors who've been sequestered for 8 months are going to carefully consider all of the evidence. I think they're going to look at all of the witnesses, and they're going to ask for an awful lot of the physical evidence to be brought into the jury room. I don't believe that this jury will make a quick decision based on passion or emotion.
The conventional wisdom seems to be that either a very short or a very long deliberation might not bode well for the prosecution.
Well, that tends to be true. Certainly, if a verdict is returned in the first day or two, it is more likely to be a not guilty verdict. And if the deliberations go on for weeks, then you know that that jury is having some substantial disagreements with one another, and you may either get a hung jury or you may get some kind of compromise verdict at the end of a long and arduous deliberation.
What signs should we look for during deliberations that might indicate which way the jury is going to go, or can you do that?
You can. It's a bit like reading tea leaves, but you can get some kind of information by what type of request the jurors make for evidence to be brought into the jury room, and also in terms of readbacks. Perhaps not the first 2 or 3 days where they may want to be just clearing up differences in what people believe they heard. But as they go on in the deliberations after the 3rd day, the readbacks take on meaning.
Ann Cole, thanks. And coming up next on the CBS Evening News, small-town airline subsidies at risk in a time of budget cutting.
I think Pedigree's new mealtime with lamb and rice is just about as perfect a diet as we've ever used.
Dr. William Truesdale, veterinarian and top breeder of champion boxers.
It's made with real lamb meat and real rice. We like it because of what it does for the dogs. We like to see strong muscles. I think we have a good example right here. I'd have to give Pedigree mealtime with lamb and rice an A+. From a breeder's point of view and as a veterinarian.
Pedigree, developed with vets, recommended by top breeders.
When was the last time you played in the rain? Let your hair go wild. flexed your muscles to the world, stayed up past your bedtime. When was the last time you really had fun in a car? Riviera by Buick. Go ahead, express yourself.
Well, we're here with tropical fish dealer Rudy Laszlo, who thinks his zipper bags are fine and won't switch to Gladlock zipper bags.
That's correct.
Rudy, what do you say we drop these piranhas here into your little fish heaven?
Nope.
Sealed in either your bag or the Gladlock bag with the yellow and blue make green seal, which means the bag is closed. Your bag doesn't have a green seal.
These are my little friends. Use the Gladlock.
When it really counts, get Gladlock. Can you hear that? They're applauding you. Rudy, Rudy, Rudy.
When he was tried for murder, he got a hung jury, so they tried him again.
We have learned by the time the second trial comes around of what works and what doesn't.
Hung juries. Who really has the edge the second time around? And what could it mean for the O.J. Simpson case? The story Monday on the CBS Evening News.
Residents of the Louisiana Gulf Coast are preparing for Tropical Storm Opal. The storm, now in the southern Gulf of Mexico, is likely to gain strength and turn toward the northwest tomorrow. Opal is the 15th named storm of the season, the first one ever to start with the letter O. Senate Republican leader Bob Dole says unexpected conservative opposition may force a smaller tax cut than originally planned. Speaking on the CBS News broadcast Face the Nation, Dole said today the cut may not total the promised $245 billion. But House Speaker Newt Gingrich says House Republicans will not approve a smaller cut. Washington budget cutters are taking aim at a federal subsidy that links hundreds of small American towns to the outside world. It's the program that ensures air service to remote places from Maine to Alaska. That's tonight's Sunday Cover. Why supporters argue the program is money well spent.
Nestled in the nation's high plains country, McCook, Nebraska is hundreds of miles from anywhere. Midway between Denver, Colorado, 5 hours drive west, and Omaha, 5 hours drive east.
We are in an isolated region.
McCook traffic regional west 2010, turn runway 12 McCook.
The isolation for this town of 8,000 is eased somewhat when federally subsidized airlines touch down beginning at dawn each day. But often no one boards, often no one departs. Yet McCook and 106 other remote towns in 30 states argue the government's essential air service program keeps them competitive, keeps them on the map.
It means being able to have business people come into our community, see our community, what we have to offer, and perhaps locate in our community or expand into our community.
Other options for getting to town aren't likely to lure wanted investors. There is no bus service, no interstate, only two-lane highways across miles of prairie. Amtrak pulls through town twice a day, always before dawn, bound for either Seattle or Chicago, and scores of stops in between.
No industry is going to want to come out here if they don't have air service to get to the facilities.
Bill Bauer manages the largest plant in town. Deco Corporation employs more than 300 people to produce garden and mechanical hose for a firm based in New York. Air service can make the difference between profit and loss.
If one of our pieces of equipment go down, we figure we're going to lose $1,000 an hour until we can get it back up.
To a Congress looking to balance the budget, the $33 million now spent to provide air service to rural towns is on the hit list. And the White House is pushing to pull the subsidy altogether.
We're spending too much money per passenger and per community. Every time we put a passenger on a McCook, $155. If a passenger takes a round trip, that's $155 twice.
Nebraska Republican Congressman Bill Barrett represents McCook and 6 other Nebraska towns that rely on the essential air service program.
The program is not about the cost per passenger. It's about moving people when it's necessary to move people in and out and move them quickly.
Barrett and his mostly Republican constituents talk about their right to be rural, their right to reasonable government revenue, as long as McCook is productive.
Not everything should happen in, or needs to happen, in California, or New York, or Florida, or Texas.
We keep people gainfully making a living out here. You know, what would it cost if they weren't employed? So I think, you know, the money spent is well spent.
$328,000 per year is what our subsidy is. It's not an unreasonable amount to keep our air service in this community.
The fate of the Essential Air Service program is now in the hands of a House-Senate Conference Committee.
When we ask people to guess the name of our special line of cereals from Kellogg.
Sweet biscuits from another planet.
I've got it. Wacky almond raisin best. Whoa.
No matter which delicious kind they tried, no one guessed they were healthy choice.
Come on.
Maybe they were surprised by so much baked-in flavor. Whole grains touched with honey, cinnamon, or brown sugar.
I know what it is. Honey Toasted Cheezers.
Okay. Healthy choice cereals from Kellogg's.
It's good. It's good.
You want a name?
Monday, I soak my dentures. Tuesday, I brush. Wednesday, I...
Stop. Denture Cream really cleans dentures, and its new mouthwash fresh formula has more minty mouthwash ingredients. Denture Cream.
Every day.
Now with new mouthwash fresh formula.
You know what I hate? Pain. That's why I love Aspercream. When I get mine on muscle aches, I just rub it in for fast relief that lasts for hours. And it's odor-free. Why live with pain? You're gonna love it. Aspercream does not contain aspirin.
One day it came to us. You can keep pollution out of the environment by keeping pollution out of the environment. But a bigger idea is not to cause pollution in the first place. And 35,000 scientists and engineers are on the case. We want a cleaner, safer world more than anyone. Almost anyone. The members and partners of the Chemical Manufacturers Association, working for change.
More shuttle diplomacy today for U.S. Bosnia envoy Richard Holbrooke. The Assistant Secretary of State met in Zagreb with Croatia's President Franjo Tudjman following talks in Sarajevo and Belgrade. Holbrooke said both sides are still far apart on how to end the fighting in Bosnia. New U.S. satellite pictures reportedly show Iraq is massing tanks and troops near the Kuwait border and may be planning another invasion. The Sunday Times of London also says some Pentagon officials favor a preemptive attack on the Iraqi forces. But others argue the available intelligence is unclear. The state of Virginia put to death a contract killer by lethal injection last week. The execution is part of a national move to speed up the ultimate punishment for more than 3,000 inmates on death row. More on that from Regina Blakely.
Death was pronounced at 9:09 p.m.
The execution of Dennis Stockton was the first under Virginia's new law that moves up execution dates to 70 days after the last high-level appeal.
It's hard to understand why the state is in such a hurry.
Only a small group of protesters showed up outside Greenville Prison, and public protest is not expected to halt the 7 more executions set for this year, at a pace of 1 every 10 days.
Death penalty cases, they are taking 12, 15, sometimes 17 years. Justice delayed is justice denied from the point of view of the public, and this is terribly hard on the victims' families.
Virginia is not alone in its rush to execution. 6 other states have recently passed laws imposing similar deadlines or limiting appeals for death row inmates. And Congress is getting even tougher. It plans to eliminate funds for centers that have helped defend death row inmates, and there's strong support for a bill that would limit the time a higher court has to determine the fairness of a death row prisoner's trial. Defense lawyers who work with death row inmates warn the new laws would make it harder for accused murderers to receive competent counsel.
Society has an interest in ensuring that the constitutional rights of these people are protected. And you can't do that if you're rushing people through litigation.
But law enforcement officials say the changes simply reflect a profound shift in public opinion.
It is, however, time for the people and for the victims to have their opportunity to have a criminal justice system that vindicates their rights, and that's what these measures do.
So far this year, a record 42 prisoners have been executed nationwide. While society debates how to speed up the judicial process while still ensuring that the constitutional rights of inmates are protected, 3,028 inmates are waiting on death row. Regina Blakely, CBS News, Washington.
It's never fun to eat and run, to rush and eat too fast, 'cause you know it's gonna catch up with you at last.
For acid indigestion or heartburn with headache, nothing's faster than Alka-Seltzer.
Get yourself some Alka-Seltzer and you'll feel better fast.
When I was young, you and Mom made sure I ate right.
Well, you were my little girl.
Well, today we're listening to our doctors and taking better care of our health with Ensure.
Ensure is recommended #1 by doctors as a source of complete, balanced nutrition.
More than a vitamin supplement, Ensure has all the nutrients adults need to help stay healthy, active, be energetic.
Drink Ensure as a meal.
Or in between. Ensure. To your health, Dad.
To our health.
Ensure. Doctors recommended #1.
In Germany, comparative advertising is prohibited. For instance, you're not allowed to say one car can out-corner another car, or that one car rides quieter than another car, or that one car is faster than another car. But hey, this is America. The Nissan Maxima. Now you can lease the Nissan Maxima GXE for $0 down, $319 a month for 36 months.
Introducing an Alka-Seltzer that goes where no Alka-Seltzer has gone before. New Alka-Seltzer caplets. Now you can get fast relief for acid indigestion or heartburn with headache in an easy-to-swallow caplet. Anytime, anywhere. New Alka-Seltzer caplets.
When he was tried for murder, he got a hung jury, so they tried him again.
We have learned by the time the second trial comes around of what works and what doesn't.
Hung juries. Who really has the edge the second time around? And what could it mean for the O.J. Simpson case? The story Monday on the CBS Evening News.
In Britain, a protest group called today for massive, passive resistance against an invader from across the English Channel. This was the day centuries of habit and tradition knuckled under to the dreaded metric system. Vicki Mabry has the story.
Oh, there. Oh, yeah.
Britain today is a country in confusion.
I just don't understand them at all.
Unsure about even the simplest things.
I don't know what this means anymore.
Confused over weights and heights and quantities and distance.
You know, when you're educated in pounds and inches, that's it.
Because today, Britain joined the rest of Europe and went metric.
You can keep some things quite happily in your own country. We haven't got much left we can keep, have we?
In supermarkets, packaged meat is measured metrically.
That's 1 pound, 12 ounces.
While meat at the butcher's counter is still in pounds. Produce is bagged in kilograms,
bananas,
but sold loose by the pound as well.
I'd rather stay the same, frankly, but then, I'm old.
It was enough to bring a very genteel group of political protesters to one of London's largest grocery chains.
As our slogan now is, give them an inch and they'll take 1.6 kilometers.
Oddly enough, you'll still travel in miles, but you'll gas up your car in liters, not gallons. The price of changing equipment has put some gas station owners and small shopkeepers out of business.
Yesterday I was legal, today I'm illegal.
And imagine the confusion at your local pub. Wine is already bottled in metric units. Now soft drinks have to be sold in liters and milliliters. But thank goodness, one fine old British tradition remains. You can still buy your beer in pints and half pints.
The last week I've noticed people shopping. How am I ever going to live with this change, you know? Get a calculator if it's that bad.
For some things, you won't need a calculator. A foot long is still a foot long, and a quarter pounder is, well, you get it. Some traditions are just too sacred to touch. Vicki Mabry, CBS News, London.
And that's the news later on CBS, 60 Minutes. And tomorrow on CBS This Morning, the latest on the bombing conspiracy verdict and the beginning of deliberations in the O.J. Simpson trial. I'm John Roberts, CBS News, New York. Good night.
CBS News. Have you seen your country today?
A pleasant